Alright, so today's video, we're going to talk about biofeedback, specifically like what do we mean when we talk about biofeedback, how do you incorporate that into your training, stuff like that. The main thing to know is obviously that biofeedback refers to a lot of different things. We're not really talking about any specific technique in particular when we're talking about biofeedback usually. So it can mean all sorts of things. Its most basic level, biofeedback is essentially anything where you're listening to your body. Anytime you're using your body's feedback to determine what you're doing in your training. And at its most basic level, everyone kind of does that instinctually. You go to the gym, you work out, you do a really heavy set, and you're breathing too hard to do another set right away, so you take a rest. That's listening to your body. But of course we have now a lot more scientific ways of doing this. We have, for example, things like heart rate variability, which is how much your heart rate varies over a period of time. You can use that to determine how ready your body is for specific tasks. We have your heart rate monitors to put numbers on things, make things a lot more accurate. We have all kinds of fancy, gadgets and stuff like that, to watch like your heart rate and your blood pressure and the one that is most actionable, the one that is easiest to use, the one that I talk about when I talk about biofeedback in particular is essentially using full body measures of readiness to determine if your body wants to do a task or not. The idea is not, I cannot take credit for it. It was initially taught to me by David Dellanave. You should check out his work at dellanave.com. I will admit that I'm mostly stealing it from him. So, but it does work, and he will tell you that. Essentially, we have several different measures that we know are accurate measures of full body readiness to do anything. So, we have the tapping test. So if you had for example, like my desk here, and you're just going to tap as fast as you can on your desk. Then say you do a couple sets of a bench press, and you do the tapping test again, and you find out that you can't do as many taps in a certain period of time as you could the first time. Well, that means that your body's not ready to do a bench press. It means essentially that your body is telling you that it's kind of drawing back on the energy level, telling you not to use that. And there's other ones. There's grip strength. Grip strength is another full body readiness measurement. If you do a grip strength test, you do a bench press, find out that your grip strength has gone down, it's not ready to do that. Conversely, of course, if it goes up, then it is ready to do that. And the other big one is flexibility. This is the easiest one for most people to measure. Because grip strength, you're going to need a grip dynamometer, which costs some money. The tapping test, you probably need someone else to help you with that. But the flexibility test essentially is you just any range of motion flexibility. You will see what your range of motion is. Not stretching beforehand, of course, because that'll kind of throw things off. But essentially, you'll just see what your current range of motion is. You'll perform the action, and then you'll check the range of motion again. So typically, the way it works, very flexible people don't see as much of a difference, as much of a change, as much of a variation from different exercises. The less flexible you are, the more noticeable the difference is. More flexible people want to pick a range of motion test that is not good for them. So for example, say you've got great hip mobility, so you can do a forward bend, touch palms flat on the floor while standing, but say you can't raise your arm very high. You may want to use your arm raise as your measurement, just because then it's a little bit easier to tell what's improving, what's not. So essentially, you are testing your flexibility, doing a few reps of whatever exercise, and then you are testing it again. If your flexibility improves, it means your body's ready to do that exercise. And if it worsens, it means that you should definitely not do it. If it stays about the same, maybe you could do it, maybe not, depending on whether or not you find something better to do. And the thing here to know is that just because, say for example, your bench press does poorly, your flat bench press that is, doesn't mean that it won't do well with other variations. So, say for example, a regular bench press does not test well. Well, it's possible that means that it's not a good day to do upper body, not a good day to do your chest. But what it could also mean is that you should try out a incline bench press, a decline bench press, a bench press with dumbbells, different bars, different like loading schemes. Any kind of variation that you can put on that may change the way the muscles are activated, and thus change whether or not your body's ready for it. In general, I would say that if you get a very poor result on a specific exercise, such as that you test flexibility, you try it, you test flexibility again, your flexibility greatly decreases, chances are that there aren't really many variations that'll do amazingly. But essentially what that is it's finding whatever your body actually wants to do at that time. And your body essentially knows already that what it wants to do and what it doesn't, what it's ready to do, what it's not. And that's just a way of listening to it. It's a way that's a lot more measurable too than simply just going off of your feelings for things. And of course, the more ready your body is for an exercise, the better results it's going to get out of it. They did a pretty interesting study in which they had people test different rep and test different rep and set schemes, and they found out that people actually saw the most gains going off of whatever their body wanted to do most, even though like some of the reps were ridiculous. Like people would gain strength doing something like 30% of their max, which doesn't make any sense. And then of course they tried putting them in things that weren't their best, and they would lose strength or stall out. So part of the reason that in general that we vary things to avoid adaptation, to avoid accommodation, is because your body may not want to do things in a certain way, and it wants to try different things, just to kind of see what works for it. So with biofeedback, the main thing is, again, just kind of identifying what your body wants to do at any given time, and then just doing that. It's very simple. It's a very easy technique. So say, for example, on a given day, I wake up, I say, okay, I don't really know what I want to do today. I could do anything. So I'll test all my major movements. I'll test a bench press, I'll test a squat, a deadlift, an overhead press, and a back movement. And, whichever one tests best, that's what I'm going to work on for the day, because that's what my body wants to do. And then you further refine it a little bit. So say maybe, see maybe my back is what my body wants to do, and a pull-up tests pretty well, but maybe a row tests better. So I'll do rows for the day. And this really only determines your primary movement. In terms of accessory work, it's not really important to test accessory work all the time, just because it's a lot lighter and it's not, not nearly max intensity. I would say biofeedback becomes most important at higher intensities, just because, again, that's where things get a little more, intense. So your body, you want to make sure your body's ready to do it before you, try and force it to do things. And the other interesting thing is that this works really great for rehab type settings. So what happens is, again, like your body will tell you what it wants to do and what it doesn't, and it knows to avoid things that would exacerbate injuries, make them worse, while at the same time it will want to do things that will make those better, so work around them. So for example, if you've got someone with a shoulder issue, typically typical personal trainer wisdom says that you're going to do essentially with the forward grip instead of the wider out grip, and do like a dumbbell press. And that's a little bit better because it puts it in a different plane of motion, puts less stress on your shoulders, and that means that it's a way to strengthen your shoulders without damaging them too much. But interestingly enough, I could know that as a personal trainer, or you could just test that and find that out on your own. And different people have different bodies, so certain exercises may work really well for certain people and not for others. And this test is a way of finding out what you're good at. And then, for example, like a personal example, I was doing like really heavy push presses a while back, like 200 pounds, and I was kind of getting really tired out, and I should have stopped, but I didn't. And so I went for just like one last set, and I, tried to get that rep up, and I leaned way too far back, and I, like messed up something on my low back. And after that, I, took like a week off from doing anything, and then I got back in, and so I would test my shoulder exercises to see, what shoulder exercises my body was ready to do. And the interesting thing is that my body knew without me having to put any input into it. I would do tests, and it would always tell me to avoid anything that involved a standing overhead press. Because, of course, my spine was the weak link, and I didn't want to put too much stress on that. So it would always test poorly to do a standing exercise, but it would always test well to do a seated, like a seated overhead press, whether with a barbell or a dumbbell or, like other stuff, lateral raises, arnold presses, stuff like that. So the interesting thing, of course, with that is that essentially my body knew that it didn't want to do any standing work because that would just exacerbate the injury, and so it was instead telling me to do seated work. And then, for example, David Dellanave has a great story about the Jefferson deadlift, which is a favorite exercise of his. And another piece of traditional personal training wisdom says that when you do a deadlift, the closer the bar is to your body, kind of the closer it is underneath your spine, the safer it is. So typically the traditional deadlift can be a little bit dangerous for people with back problems because it involves bending a little bit further forward, involves the bar being a little bit further away from your midline. Whereas the sumo deadlift, the bar is a lot closer to your spine, it's a lot more underneath you, so it's typically considered safer. Now the interesting thing is that the Jefferson deadlift is a deadlift between the legs, and that puts the bar literally directly underneath the body, so that's literally as close as you can get to the midline. So that would ideally be the safest kind of deadlift that you could do. And again, I could know that as a personal trainer, having studied this stuff, having sort of seen these trends, or you could just test that and you would find out that it works for you. And that's what he says has happened with a lot of his clients, is that he has them test the Jefferson deadlift, and they find out that that helps them recover all kinds of back issues. And it also has a rotational element as well, so it helps rehab the sides. So essentially it's a variation on the deadlift that has it's very unique in that it's really great for rehab populations, and this was something that he found out because of the test. So that is just a basic piece of training that you can really easily implement into your workouts. I'm not saying that you have to 100% of the time always listen to what your body says. Obviously sometimes like your body doesn't want to do things, and that's just your body's fault, and you do need to push through things sometimes. And again, this I would say this most applies to maximal work, major movements. For example, testing bicep curls is kind of a waste of time in my opinion. If I test well with the squat for the day, I'm going to do a bunch of squats, and then I'll do maybe some more quad exercises, but I'm not going to test those. Just because that's accessory work. It's not important. It's not super heavy intensity, so the chance that my body's going to reject it is, it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it's worth the time to test. But I do recommend testing major movements. It's a really interesting and really useful way to vary up your workout as well. And of course, again, it's a heavy emphasis on variation. So again, if something doesn't test well, try again, test other variations on the same exercise until you find something that does work out really well. Because oftentimes you'll find that just based on your own unique physiology, a lot of people have unique variations that are work really well for them. For example, squatting with a staggered stance, deadlifting with a staggered stance, squatting or deadlifting with 1 foot an inch or two off the ground, raised on like a pad or a platform or something. These are all like interesting and unique variations that may really work out very well for you, and you wouldn't know that if you hadn't had the test, if you hadn't used the test to figure that out. So that's about it for today. That's about really all I can say. Really interesting technique. The science is kind of behind it. It's kind of in a gray area right now where we're not exactly sure we kind of know that it works. We're not really sure why. Of course, I will say that it's not 100% refined as a technique yet. We don't know exactly what it does, exactly what it's useful for, but it is really great for finding exercises that your body wants to do. And sometimes, you wouldn't really know what your body wants to do if you didn't have this test. So, once again, I highly recommend checking it out. Again, I recommend checking out David Dellanave's website, going for his email list. He does a great kind of a tutorial that he sends out weekly or whatever, where you can just kind of learn the basics about biofeedback and how he uses it. Great resources there. Give it a try. And as always, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything else in the future. Have a good night.